The Art Lewis Show on this Thursday. Later on, after the 10 o'clock news, we're going to be chatting with TJ Coleman. He owns American Gasser down on Gratiot. We're going to talk about the Autorama in Detroit. He'll have some vehicles there. At 11 o'clock, the HBA of the Great Lakes Bay region talks about their Frankenmuth Home Show coming up. But for this hour, we're going to talk about one of your favorite subjects, I'm sure, property tax. And we have a very special guest to do that. He worked for the city of Saginaw for many years, assessing and doing things of that nature. He retired in 2001, formed his own company, and he consults and also teaches assessors. And he is Joe Turner. Joe, good morning.
Good morning, Art. It's so good to see you.
Hey, good to see you, too. Thanks for being here. Let's start with, I want an overview of the profession. What is an assessor? What do they do, and how do they do it? See you later.
Yeah, no, that's really a good question, and I think I can do it concisely. Basically, an assessor has several functions. Under the law, it's a ministerial function, and so when laws are created, you have the legislation, the legislators that create the laws. You have the ministerial duties where they administer the laws. And then you have the judicial function where they decide if the law is legal or not legal. So police are a good example of that. They don't make the laws. They don't decide if they're just. They just enforce the laws. Assessors are like officers in that aspect, except it's financial officers. And so under Michigan's Constitution, every property in the state of Michigan should be assessed, except for those that have been given an exemption under the law.
I.e. churches.
Yeah, churches are a great example. Public buildings would be another, things of that nature. So then we begin with that process, and what happens is the statute requires a 50% of value assessment. It's called a state equalized value, and it's all related to true cash value or market value. So for years and years and years, the state equalized value was multiplied by a millage rate, and that created the tax. And the millage rate is approved by the voters in some cases. In some cases, it's within the jurisdiction's authority to establish a millage rate. But anyway, that millage rate's multiplied by the value, and that creates the tax, and that's all there is to it. It's really quite simple.
Yeah.
But
you make it sound that way.
Yeah, well, over the years, it's been modified. People really do get concerned about individuals being taxed out of their homes. So in the 1990s, about 93 and 94, there were some laws that were passed where they created a taxable value. And the idea was that the value of houses was rising so quickly that people couldn't afford the taxes. They couldn't afford the payments. So what they said is, okay, from this point forward, you're going to create the tax bill based upon a millage rate times this taxable value. And the taxable value and the state equalized value begin as equals. And over time, the state equalized value will change based upon market conditions. The taxable value is limited to either the rate of inflation or 5%, whichever is lower of the two. And so over a period of time, there can be quite a difference between the state equalized value and the taxable value. And the reason that's important to your listeners is that when they go to buy a property, if it's been owned by somebody for a number of years, the taxes are going to go up automatically. And so they've got to be aware of that. And most real estate brokers should be aware of that as part of their professional duties because it can be a substantial increase in value.
Let me see if I understand this right, Joe. Homeowner A is going to sell their house.
Mm-hmm.
It has a taxable value.
Yes, sir.
And can only go up because of the cap so much per year.
Yes.
I come along, I buy the house. I'm buyer B from seller A.
Mm-hmm.
Cap doesn't apply to me. It can go up to market value and start me at that level. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, by law it has to. It's
it has
reset.
to.
Yeah, it's called an uncapping, and it has to occur.
Wow.
Now there are exemptions.
Yeah, I have to ask this question
Yeah.
because in this day and age, I mean, if we go back a number of years, when you could build a home for $75 a square foot and whatever, and you could build a home and sell it for a starter home for $125,000,
Sure.
$150,000. Starter homes today of the equivalent size are $450 because it's $300 a square foot.
Yeah.
How does that impact the taxable value of a home in the same neighborhood? I mean, have all the taxes risen because of this inflated value of homes today?
No, that's the whole point. The whole point of the taxable value is to isolate the property owner from this inflationary factor. And so the state equalized value will skyrocket. If the neighborhood's going to go up in value like that, the state equalized value has to be half the market value. But the homeowner has this benefit of they can't go up more than 5%, or the cost of living, whichever is lower.
So the assessor comes in to assess the value of my property, and he gives it a number, and from that is derived the state equalized value, not the
Yes.
taxable value.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The taxable value is based on the cap.
Yes.
Okay.
Once a taxable value has been established, and at that time of the sale it will be equal to the SEV.
Right.
From that point forward, it's a mathematical computation. It has nothing to do with the market. And the Consumer Price Index is not based upon housing costs. It's based upon the cost of food and gasoline and everything else. So that number can often be a lot smaller than
Sure.
the housing.
Right. Oh, it's such a fun topic.
Yeah. Well,
You made
and
a career out of it, so
it's fascinating because you're taking money out of the taxpayer's pocket.
well, I know it, and that's
And you want to do it right.
well, that's all government does. I mean, government has no money that we don't give them, none,
True.
zero.
Absolutely true.
You know, people say, "Well, businesses pay tax." Well, where's business get their money from? Same pocket. So, but we're going to spend some time this morning talking about the appeal process because, I mean, most of the time when someone comes to a board of appeal, they're not happy. You got to deal with unhappy people, don't you?
We do.
You
yes.
you sit on these boards, right?
I do. I'm
Review
chairman
boards.
of the board. Have been for 20 years.
Yeah, and people are not happy. So we're going to talk about let's say the polite way to make your case in front of the appeals board. And it'll be interesting, folks. Stick around for it. We're talking to Joe Turner, and we will return with more after these notes.
It's natural to have questions.
This is a test of the emergency.
And we're back with you. We're talking to Joe Turner, who has a company, consults on tax assessments and things, teaches assessors for their re-upping of their licenses and all of that good stuff. So let's talk about the appeal process. And I'm going to start with a question before we get to the details.
Sure.
I'm a homeowner. I get my assessment. I don't think it's right. I want to appeal it. Can I go out? Are there independent assessors that I can hire to reassess my property to see if it agrees with the governmental assessment?
Those are appraisers, residential appraisers. So
And do they count? If I come into you at an assessor's hearing, at a tax appeal hearing, and I say, well, your assessor said this, but my appraiser says this, and if he's qualified or she's qualified, certified and all that stuff, does it come into play?
that's exactly what we want to see. That's the board of review is the first of the portion of the appellate process. And before you can go to the Michigan Tax Tribunal, you have to go to the local board of review. And at the local board of review, they're actually in a judicial position. The assessor has to present their reasons why the value is what it is, and the petitioner, the taxpayer, has to do the same thing. They have to say that value is wrong. Joe Turner's an idiot. Here's what the right value is, and they do it by documenting value in the same way the assessor does. And so the appraisal by a competent appraiser is very important, but it's not necessary because the law gives the local board of review, these are local people that live in the area, right, and they understand that market. And so in this first meeting, the idea is really to try to make the taxpayer comfortable, to understand what the facts are, reveal the facts in the hearing, and then make a decision. The board itself makes a decision based upon the facts it heard. How many people? When you say 3.
It's a tribunal.
3. Yes, but it varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. In the city of Saginaw, there are 5 members of the board of review, 3 active at any time. In the city of Bay City, there's 9 members. So they can do, if there's a crowd, they can do 3 hearings at once.
So we say boards of review. Is it city by city, township by township, or county, or how many boards of review are there?
Oh, it's your taxing jurisdiction. So if you're in a township, okay, and they tax you, then you go to them. If it's a city, you go to the city, not counties.
Not counties.
It's not. It's the
all
local
individual
jurisdiction. Yeah, the local jurisdiction.
And how many tiers of the appeal process are there? If I don't like your decision, then the next step is what? The Michigan
What an
Tribunal?
Excellent question. There are 3 tiers. It's called the exhaustion of administrative remedy when you go through these tiers. And what it means is you have to do one thing before you can do the next.
Right.
So the board of review is your first petition that the assessment is wrong. If you don't like the reaction of the board of review, then you petition the Michigan Tax Tribunal. And in Michigan, normally on a residential or simple appeal, they actually send hearing officers to each county so you don't have to travel. And then and you can do a full hearing in Lansing, but you don't have to. And then once that's done, that's the end of the factual findings about what the value should be. There may be a constitutional issue or an error of law or application of the wrong law, and that would be a hearing to the Court of Appeals. So when you get to the Court of Appeals, they don't rehear the facts about the case. They want to know, was it done properly? So you get initially the review of what was done, and then was it legal?
Yeah. I got a buddy on the Court of Appeals, and he got me hooked on watching some of these sessions they have because they're on YouTube.
Yep.
It's pretty amazing, actually.
It is.
All right, so let's talk about that property owner who now thinks their property has been misassessed. So they come to the Board of Review. What do they need to bring with them? How prepared should they be?
Okay, to answer that question, I would recommend that the aggrieved citizen call the local assessor and say, I don't think this assessment is correct. Will you tell me why you put the value on it that you did?
Well, you start there then before you even go to a hearing.
Yeah, it's free, and assessors are busy. In Bay City, they have 3 assessors and 20,000 properties. I mean, you know that's a lot of burden, and there's a lot of other duties besides putting values on residential property. So the assessor will explain what was done, he or she has done, and then the property owner can then determine part of the benefit of this is when you hear the assessor explain it, if you find something that's wrong, then you can attack that. So you kind of know what you disagree with. And then what you'd recommended earlier, the appraisal would be important, but you don't need to have an appraisal. You could look at property sales in your neighborhood. This is kind of a loosely run meeting in terms of how strict it is with regard to behavior patterns. So you can come in and say, look, I looked at properties A, B, C, and D, and people do it all the time. And here's their values. And what gets confused a lot of times is that when a person buys a property, they think that's the market value. And it's not. By law, the market value is an average of these different sales in the area. So you have some people that are good negotiators as a salesperson. some that are good negotiators as a buyer. So in any marketplace, if you can think about a bell curve in statistics, some people are going to be really good at what they do. Some people are not going to be good. So it creates a distribution. You could have 5 3-bedroom ranches, and they all sold for different values. They're all in the same subdivision with the same size lots. So that's what you're looking for. The assessor is doing mass appraisal.
Comparables, then.
Yes.
In other words, the house I want to compare mine to has to be like mine.
Yes, in every way possible. Then you make adjustments for the ones that need to be adjusted. So a fireplace or basement or whatever.
So now I've decided that my assessor was incorrect, and I want to come to the hearing. Do I have to make an appointment? What do I need to do?
Yes, most jurisdictions prefer an appointment, although I can tell you right now, some jurisdictions will just take a walk-in. And so you can just show up during the hours that are advertised. These are public hearings. You can listen to somebody else's appeal. You can check on anybody's tax assessment. We frequently had people who came in and checked the city manager's assessment or the city attorney's assessment to make sure they felt it was appropriate without even trying to make an appeal. So all this is public information.
And just as a guess, if you had 100 appeals before you, how many of them would you reverse, would you guess, on average?
Today, I'm going to say 2/3.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it favors the taxpayer then.
Yeah.
Oh.
And generally, people don't come in unless they have a valid reason. And oftentimes what they'll do is they don't talk to the assessor ahead of time. If they had talked to the assessor ahead of time, it would have been corrected immediately. So when they get to the board of review and they have a legitimate complaint, it's not just an argument over the value itself, but there's a reason for the difference.
Well, let me back up a second here. So if I'm Mr. Property Owner, I look at my assessment and I don't think it's right. I call my assessor to find out why he did what he did or she did what she did. Can they correct that before I even come to you?
Yeah. The tax, what happens is on December 31st, preceding the board of review. So last December 31st in 2025, the assessors around the state of Michigan said which properties can be taxed and which are exempt. Then once they determine the properties that are taxable, they begin to do calculations to put values on them. So then they send a letter out to the property owners to let them know what that value is. And at that time, any property owner can just call and talk to the assessor.
Which would save you the trouble of even coming to the hearing.
Oh, yeah. And assessors don't want to have fights. Generally, what they're trying to do is to get it right. So if there's a reasonable argument, assessors will frequently make an adjustment.
All right, so let's get past that point. And now they come to you.
Yes.
What's this hearing like?
Well, in the ones that we conduct, and I think this is what is generally happens around the state, is oftentimes taxpayers are not familiar with the government hearing. They're nervous. They don't know about real estate necessarily.
Or they're mad and
well, there are the angry ones.
and they're obstinate and think they know the law.
There are those that do that, and there are those that come in impaired by whatever. Consumption of something. So anyway, what we try to do is to put them at ease, and we give the taxpayer control. So the general overall action is that the petitioner will come in, the assessor will, the chairman will read the information on the appeal itself to the board, what the discrepancy is. Then you turn it over to the assessor and you say, okay, read off the facts, the information that's on the card. And if the appellant or the petitioner hears that they're charged for a building they don't have, they'll say, hey, that's not there. It was demolished 5 years ago. So that gets corrected immediately. So the first thing that happens is we verify the facts about the structure and the land. Then we turn it over to the petitioner, and that person can then say, okay, I don't think this is right. I heard what the assessor said, but here's what I believe to be true. And then they go through a list, and they may bring us pictures of other buildings. They may bring us pictures of their own buildings. They might have a guy next door that won't cut his grass, and it looks like heck back there, so they'll bring that picture in. Anything they think that affects value, and the ones that have gotten the appraisal will bring the appraisal in. So they present their stuff to the board, and we let them do what they want to do. In other words, there are time limits, and you need to be civil in what you do. But within those parameters, the taxpayer should be heard and comfortable. And then once they're done, then the board members themselves may have a question or two, and then once the board members' questioning is done, then the petitioner is excused, and the board will make a decision. And
Right then and there.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, not always, because sometimes you need to consider what was presented, and sometimes there's such a huge rush that you just put it aside so you can hear the next petitioner. The timing issue is important too.
All right, talking to Joe Turner about property taxes and assessments and appeals and all of that. Talk about exemptions, too, when we return here on the Art Lewis Show. We'll be back after these notes.
Looking for a great
Back with you, Joe Turner with us, former city assessor in Saginaw, and now has a consulting company and teaches assessors. Talking about the tax appeal process. I want to talk just for a minute, too, Joe, about exemptions, because there are a number of them, aren't there? There's a whole bunch of exemptions that I didn't realize. Some of them, I'll question you on as we get to it, but let's start with the obvious one. Veterans, they have an exemption.
If a veteran is injured in service and has 100% disability from the federal government, then they can have their property taxes exempted. It's a relatively new law within the last decade or so.
And proof of disability is on the
federal government. Yep, they issue a letter. Yeah.
So the federal government decides whether you're 100% disabled.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
There's something called hardship exemptions in various percentages, 4 different percentages. What's a hardship?
Well, we recognize that there are people that sometimes have medical conditions, an accident, some thing that happened to them that created a real hardship. And so they can come in and petition the Board of Review for a hardship exemption, and it's granted in increments. What happens is there's an asset test that's created. There's a series of tests that are created by the local unit of government. So the city might have one way and the township another, but there's a foundation amount that everybody begins with. And so then the board hears the petitioner and decides if, based on the facts, whether they should get a 25% relief, 50%, 75%, or 100%. It's for 1 year only, and it has to be reapplied for every year.
You know, you're making it sound like government's benevolent.
Well,
when did that happen?
Well, I think it happened when citizens began to yell at politicians. So,
all right, the next one, and I asked you this before because I'd never heard of this before. What's the Matthew Gast exemption improvements?
Mr. Matthew and Mr. Gast were members of the state legislature, and people were very concerned. They put a new roof on their home, they rewired their home, they plumbed it, corrected old things, and their taxes would go up. And so this law says that there's just a whole series of items that are listed, but basically you can repaint your home, you can take and put carpeting in, you can repair the plumbing, the electrical, put a new roof on, and the assessor won't raise your value because of that. Now, the distinguishing characteristic is it's got to be normal maintenance and repairs. If you buy a house to flip it and you change the whole home,
right,
then that's a whole different story, and your assessment's going to go up.
But I can understand that, because if I put a new roof on my house, I'm taking it back to its original structure. I'm not improving it. I'm bringing it back up to where it belongs.
Yep. The counter argument is in the marketplace, you just made it more valuable. But we're not going to tax you for that.
Good. Thank you very much. Home is built for handicap.
Yes, this is a rarely used law, but it does exist. If somebody is severely handicapped and a home is built specifically for them with wider doors and all kinds of adjustments to take care of their handicap condition, those homes can be exempted.
So a home that might be built by the Tunnel to Towers group that come in and build homes for veterans who are disabled could be exempt.
It's possible you'd have
because they're built usually specifically for that handicap.
Yeah, that's true.
Interesting. Interesting indeed. Hardship exemption, well, that's the second time I see that on here. It says part or full.
Yeah, I'm accidentally listed it twice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, all right, so can't double up on it.
Nice try, though.
Income tax homestead exemption.
Yes, this is a very interesting law. When it was originally passed, it was the foundation premise is nobody should be taxed out of their house, and conditions change. You might have a married couple where one of the two dies and the income level is diminished greatly because of that, and yet they're living in a fairly nice home, and the taxes are high. So what do we do? So, and you don't want to take somebody that's living in $1 million home and pay their taxes for them, because certainly with that kind of income, they should be able to move to a different home. So the legislature said, well, we're going to say that the threshold is 3.5%. So we're going to take 3.5% of your income and compare it to your property taxes. And if your property taxes are more than 3.5% of your income, then we're going to give you some of that back. And the law has been modified since it was originally installed to 3.2%. So anybody can take 3.2% of their household income. That's the income of everybody in the household.
Okay, so if we just simplify the numbers, you got a $100,000 household income, $3,200 is exempt. Is your base
That's the
exemption,
threshold.
Right? The threshold.
Yeah, so if your
Meant
taxes were $5,000,
right,
then you're going to get 60% of the difference, which was $1,800 in your example.
So you're going to get 60% of that.
Of the
back.
$1,800, yeah.
Well, that's something anyway.
It is, and that's on your income tax. So that's why people don't realize it's part of the property tax structure. But it's one of the things, nobody wants to see anybody taxed out of their home. So that exists in Michigan.
Okay. We'll take a break. We'll come back talking to Joe Turner about property tax appeals, assessments, and all that good stuff. Take a moment to tell you about my friends at Quick Lane Freeland on the McDonald Ford property. Quick Lane Freeland is where you go for all your routine maintenance. And what's routine? Well, your oil changes, brakes, tires. And speaking of tires, we just had a 50-some-odd degree day yesterday. But guess what? The polar vortex is acting up, and we're going to go back in the freezer for a little while. And that means driving could be iffy. And there is a difference between winter tires and all-season tires. And I've asked John from Quick Lane Freeland, where, by the way, they sell all their tires at just $5 over cost. I've asked John to explain the difference.
Hello, Art. Yes, winter tires are made with a pliable rubber compound that includes silica to stay flexible and maintain grip in freezing temperatures. Unlike harder all-season tires, which stiffen and lose traction in the cold, this flexible compound allows the tire to better conform to the road surface, providing superior grip and traction on snow and ice to keep you safe.
Thanks, John. Stop in, visit them, take a look at the tire selection, $5 over cost for all their tires at Quick Lane Freeland. While you're there, walk on over to the McDonald Ford lot, look at all the new Ford products, or if you're in the market for a previously owned vehicle, they have an extensive lot. I'm driving one of those right now. I have a 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee Summit model that I'm driving from their lot. And also recently, last year, I bought a vehicle off that lot. I bought a Lincoln. You can find all kinds of brands and vehicles and prices to meet your budget. Stop in, visit them today. McDonald Ford, Quick Lane Freeland, two names to help you with all your automotive needs in 2026.
This is the
skyrocketing to record highs. As more Americans rush to preserve their savings, will there be enough gold? I'm Dr. Ron Paul, and I believe physical gold is the only way to truly protect your 401k or IRA savings. Gold offers tangible security